Welcome back to our channel, San Luis Obispo Real Estate. This is Jay Bond Real Estate Group, brokered by eXp Realty. If you're tuning in for a video, do I need to sell an inherited property in California? You are tuning in to the right location. Now let's circle back to that question. Do I need to sell an inherited property in California? Well, simple answer, no. No, you don't, right? But there are a few moving parts to analyze and take into consideration when asking yourself that question. Now, if you are dealing with an inherited property and you would like a custom home valuation for said property, make sure you're clicking the link in the description of this video. I will personally send you a customized home valuation for your subject property, as well as answer any questions that you have about the process. Now, when dealing with an inherited property, you really have three choices. One is, should I keep it, right? Should I rent it or should I sell it? Now, when thinking about selling, right, there could be a lot of reasons motivating that decision. One, hey, maybe there are multiple heirs, right? And it can be very difficult for them to agree on certain things regarding the property, make decisions, right? There could be also expenses, taxation, a lot of other things to figure in. And you may tell yourself, hey, like these are too many plates for me to spin in the air. I don't want to deal with this. I think it makes the most sense just to sell, get all the heirs paid, right? Simplify this process for myself, for the heirs, for the family, whoever it may be, and simply move on. Another reason for selling may be the property needs extensive repair. Right? You may not want to take all that on board and say, hey, I'd like to push for an as-is sale, get this property moved on and out of my life, right? The other instance may be you live out of area. You know, there are a lot of people dealing with inherited properties who may live in different parts of the state in California. Perhaps they live completely out of area or out of the country, and it's just not realistic for them to keep, maintain, and manage that property, so selling would likely make the most sense for them. Now, let's take a step back and really look at condition of an inherited property. Now, there's a few scenarios here. As I mentioned earlier in this video, selling as is, right? That might make the most sense when dealing with certain types of inherited property. And in that situation, you're literally just doing very simple cleanup, right? Taking photos, marketing the property. You are not doing any extensive repair, remodel, touch-up work at all, right? Now, the other portion of that is maybe you decide to do some light remodeling, right? Or light cleanup and touch-up to get a home most marketable, right? Improve the presentation, the curb appeal, as we say. Now, if that's something that you decide to do, just make sure, hey, one, does the estate or does myself, right? Do I have the budget to put in and either fix up this home for sale, clean it up, right? So if you don't have the budget, my advice would be do not make those improvements, right? Now, if you do, of course, you can get reimbursed after the sale to recoup your investment. But if you do have an opportunity to do some light cleanup, light touch up, and light repair work, right, to maximize the sale price of a property, we always encourage that you do so. Now, a question that we also get is, hey, should I completely remodel and sell this inherited home? Well, I'm going to be honest, I would probably advise not doing so. Why is that? Well, honestly, you don't want to open a can of worms, as we say, because as you start one project, you may realize, heck, I need to start this other project, right? And that can snowball and mount up very quickly on you, right? And you want to make sure that you're, one, getting your investment back on this inherited property and not taking a loss or being stuck because you realize, gosh, I've over improved this home now and I'm not actually able to sell it like I wanted to and get my money back, right? So just a few things to think about through this process. Now, when dealing with an inherited property, there are also a few scenarios that may take place as far as the deceased estate. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, for example, if the deceased had a will in place or no will, right, then likely a property would need to go through probate, right? Now, if the deceased had an established living trust or trust, right, then likely it would not need to go to probate. So depending on the scenario, there could be various timelines involved. Trust can be a much quicker process, whereas probate could take a few months, maybe 3 to 6 months before that personal representative has the green light or the ability to sell the home. So something to keep in mind, in San Luis Obispo County, there are many various property types here. So for example, if you're dealing with an inherited property, there's a good chance that the deceased may have not just had a single family home. They may have had a home on acreage, right? There may have been a lot of land to tend to and deal with, not just the home itself. There also may have been some sort of business or agricultural element tied to the property as well. Maybe it was an equestrian ranch, right? Maybe they ran cattle. Maybe there's avocados or citrus or perhaps an olive orchard, or maybe even a few acres of grapes, right? So there may be other moving parts to deal with on said property and not just the home on the property itself. Now, we have dealt with a lot of these property types throughout the years, and I'd encourage you, if you're dealing with an inherited property in San Luis Obispo County, again, make sure you're clicking on the link in the description of this video. I will personally send you a custom home valuation for the home and the property, all the moving parts there, right? As well as answer questions that you may have for the property specifics. Now, again, if you are dealing with an inherited property, this is likely due to some big life change, right? This is not always a business decision. It's a very personal one, right? And we understand that. So as always, we really appreciate you guys tuning in. We love being your real estate resource here in San Luis Obispo County. So as always, we appreciate you, and stay tuned for the next video.